Dr. Williams said SARAA, and SARAA stands for the Susquehanna Area Regional Airport Authority, which is the group that I work with. How many here have flown or used Harrisburg International Airport recently or ever? So there's a few. Are there anyone here who's interested in a career in aviation at all, in some way or fashion? Not quite sure. Well, we'll talk a little bit about that anyway. So, can you all hear me okay? Okay, good. Just a little bit of an outline of what I'd like to just review today. And please, if anybody has any questions, just speak up. I wanted to just, in addition to the introduction, talk a little bit about my background, my experience, my responsibilities as the Executive Director for the Airport Authority, a brief overview of the Airport Authority, a discussion as kind of what we do as an organization, so strategic planning, which is a big part of our administrative effort, our keys to the success, the long-term success of the Airport Authority. Talk a little bit about passenger and cargo services. We're always working on air service development and trying to get new opportunities, new destinations for passengers out of Harrisburg International. Some of the challenges associated with air service development, and just some leadership qualities as I have observed over the past few years. So starting with my background, just very quickly, as Dr. Williams said, I graduated with a Bachelor of Science degree in Aeronautical Science from Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University. Has anybody ever heard of that? One, or maybe a couple. That's located in Daytona Beach, Florida. I am a licensed pilot. I have a commercial instrument multi-engine rating. I started my career as a charter pilot and a flight instructor working out of Groton New London Airport in Connecticut. I then took a position as the airport operations supervisor in New Haven, Connecticut, working mostly weekends and overnight shifts and holidays and so forth. So it was an entry-level position. I became the operations manager in Lebanon, New Hampshire in 1989. And then I became the airport manager when the former airport manager there took another position in Colorado. And I was airport manager there for about 12 years. Then I accepted a position here in Harrisburg as the deputy executive director in 2003. 2006, I was promoted to executive director when the executive director retired. I am an accredited airport executive, which is through the American Association of Airport Executives. I'm on the board of directors of the American Association of Airport Executives, and also on the board of directors of the Aviation Council of Pennsylvania. Just a brief overview as what someone in my position does, and I always get a lot of questions from people. Well, what do you know, if you're an airport manager, what do you do? And I try to explain, exactly what we do. First and foremost, we're responsible for airport safety, security, operations, and maintenance of the airport system. Economic development, we do have some property assets. Not much. We don't own a lot of property, but we do have some. And we're responsible for the development of that property and ground leases and so forth. Air service development is something that we spend a lot of time on. Capital projects, planning, and grant funding. We have 4 airports, and there's always some capital development, capital projects, runway reconstruction, always going on. Legal, regulatory compliance, and that is with regard mostly to the FAA, the Transportation Security Administration, and PennDOT. Mostly Bureau of Aviation. Government affairs, we have a lot of interaction with both local, state, and federal government officials and our congressional delegation, our General Assembly members that represent our district. Financial oversight, we have a $30 million annual budget, basically. revenue budget. Part of that is for maintenance and operations. A big part of it is also for debt service. Human resources, personnel action. I'm ultimately responsible for hiring and firing. Public relations, marketing, and social media is something that we spend a lot of time on. And community outreach, and that includes doing programs like this and getting out and interacting with the community. A little bit about SARA, the Airport Authority. Again, it stands for Susquehanna Area Regional Airport Authority. We've been a municipal authority since 1998. We were formerly the Olmsted Air Force Base, and after that, the airport, Harrisburg International, was actually owned by PennDOT and operated by the Bureau of Aviation until it was taken over by the Airport Authority. I have a 15-member board of directors. We have about 100. We have 100 employees. 91 are full-time. So, just give you a sense of the size of the staff. Those are Airport Authority employees. And we own and operate 4 airports: Harrisburg International Airport, Capital City Airport, Franklin County Regional Airport, and Gettysburg Regional Airport are all part of our system. The last 3, Capital City, Franklin County, and Gettysburg, are all general aviation, smaller airports. Franklin County and Gettysburg are very small airports. Capital City is a larger general aviation airport. A little bit about the authority. It's a municipal authority, but it's different from a city. A city has when I worked in Lebanon, the Lebanon airport was owned by the city of Lebanon. So we were just a department of the city of Lebanon, and so we had to compete for resources with Public Works and with the parks people and with the fire department and police department and every other department. We're different because we're a separate and distinct authority that was created solely to operate these 4 airports. Originally, it was 2 airports, Harrisburg and Capital City. So we do not produce or sell a product. We basically own the property, and then we lease the property out to the various tenants and concessionaires and other businesses that operate on the airport. The SARA board, the Airport Authority Board, is volunteer only. There are no shareholders. And the Airport Authority is a self-sustaining entity that does not rely on state or local or federal taxes or federal subsidies to operate. So we basically operate using our own resources. Excuse me. And that's something we're very proud of, the fact that we don't have the ability to tax the community or the local residents or the population in the township in which we live. So we basically have to rely on our own ability to generate revenue to pay the bills. Management structure. The SARA Board of Directors has the general management and control of the business affairs of the authority. The policies and they set the policies basically, and the policies of the SARA Board and the business of the authority shall be administered by the Executive Director, who is the Chief Administrative Employee of the authority. So I'm basically the only employee that is responsible to the SARA Board. Everyone else, the rest of the staff, is responsible to me. The organizational structure, and these are just some of the areas in which we are responsible for the Airport Authority. Administration and finance, of course. Engineering and planning. We have our own engineering department that works for the Airport Authority. It's a small department, but they do a lot of work. We have our own fire department, our own police department, and we have security staff as well. Not Transportation Security Administration, that's a federal agency under the Department of Homeland Security, but we have our own people who provide security other than law enforcement at the curbside, We call them traffic control officers, and basically everybody who works at the airport today is responsible for security in an operating position. Obviously we're responsible for operations, which is FAA certification. There's a lot of regulations that are associated with the maintenance and operation of an airport and an airport system. Marketing, customer service. We have a very active marketing department, a very active group that are always interacting with the social media technology, information technology. So we have our own staff in that area. Environmental compliance. Harrisburg was actually an Air Force base, so it had multiple environmental violations, I guess you could say, that go back years and years and years. So that's always a big concern with everything we do. We're actually a Superfund site back when the Air Force Base was closed in the late 60s. Because we were an Air Force Base, we have our own water plant and our own wastewater treatment facility. A lot of people don't realize that, but we produce and sell water to United Water, and we use it for our own purposes. We do our own building and grounds maintenance, our own fleet maintenance, and again, we have staff that maintain and operate our 3 general aviation airports. Regarding economic activity, we can identify $33 million in direct annual economic impact based on spending and parking. 1.3 million total passengers in 2015, including 80,000 international passengers, and total 1,500 jobs. The airport supports 1,500 jobs, supported by HIA operations and 60 businesses located on HIA property. So that would include the car rentals, it would include air traffic control, it would include UPS and FedEx and the concessions in the terminal buildings, such as Phillips and Hudson News and so forth. So those are all jobs that are supported by the operation of the airport. Regarding development, economic development, I mentioned is one of our primary responsibilities. We do have several projects that are currently underway in various stages of development, which help us generate revenue so that we can maintain our self-sufficient status. We've got, starting on the upper left, Penn State University, Harrisburg campus has 5,000 students, 8% of those are international. We do have a lot which is adjacent to the college campus where we're currently developing car rental activities. The Sheets, if you're familiar with Route 230 by the college, just opened in 2015. We have a new UPS facility. The train station will be constructed by PennDOT beginning sometime in 2018, we believe. A new 120-room hotel. We plan to begin construction of the hotel in March or April of next year, 2017. Pretty excited about that. We took down the old terminal building, and we're going to be the fixed base operator, or the general aviation service provider is going to be constructing a new service facility on that location. Snow removal equipment building. A corporate hangar is going to be constructed in the site that is shown, and that will be from Select Transport. They have a corporate hangar currently at HIA, and we're developing the old Bastille property. Yes, sir.
Who's going to own that hotel? Is the airport going to own it?
No, that's being developed by a group called the Shaner Group. And they're currently building a hotel in Hershey. I think it's soon to be opening. I'm not quite sure when the grand opening there is, but they own and operate several hotel properties in Pennsylvania and in other locations around in the region. And that's just a rendering of the hotel. That it's planned to be Marriott Fairfield Inn and Suites. Like I said, it's 120 rooms. It'll be in the location, if you're familiar with the airport at all, as you're approaching the terminal building, there's a parking lot on the left, right across from where the old terminal building was, and that's where the hotel is going to be constructed. We're really excited about that project. All right, I mentioned strategic planning, and something that myself and my senior staff and the airport authority board spend a considerable amount of time planning and discussing and evaluating, keeping track of where we are. And just a short definition, strategic planning is an organization's process of defining its strategy or direction and making decisions on allocating resources to pursue this strategy. We do have a strategic plan, which is 2015 through 2019 strategic plan, so we've been kind of operating under the plan for a couple years with 4 goals. First goal is to improve and expand air service, something we're constantly doing. As I said, so far this year, we just got back from Montreal where we were visiting Air Canada. Air Canada does serve Harrisburg, but nonetheless we try to maintain regular contact with all of our incumbent carriers. We've been to Chicago to visit United Airlines. We've been to Atlanta to visit Delta Airlines. We've been to Dallas to visit American Airlines. So we're always out and about talking to our various airline partners, incumbent carriers and also carriers that we hope at one day or might have some interest in serving this region and serving Harrisburg International Airport. So that's the first goal. The second goal is to provide outstanding customer service. We do have a considerable competition, as you know. We're not that far from Baltimore. We're not that far from Philadelphia. Both airports have much more service than we currently can provide out of Harrisburg International. So the big advantage we have is that we're local, we're convenient, and we can provide the type of customer service that Baltimore and Philadelphia cannot provide, only because we're dealing with a much smaller number of people. So that's something myself and my staff spend a lot of time discussing and evaluating our status as it relates to our customer service successes. Goal 3 is recognizing is to develop staff in the SARA organization, recognizing the importance of our employees to the overall success of the airport authority, and making sure that they feel they have a opportunity for advancement and they're getting the training that they wish to have and that we need them to have, and so that they feel engaged with the success of the airport authority, something we also spend a lot of time overseeing. And goal number 4 is to improve the financial position and manage debt. Also, if you're familiar with Harrisburg International, we have a brand new terminal building, or it was brand new. It's 12 years old now. It opened in 2004. And we had to borrow a lot of money, $200 million approximately, to construct that terminal building and do some of the airfield work we did and build the parking garage. And of course, that all has to be paid back. So our debt position is about 45% of our overall expenses goes to pay down our annual debt obligation. So that's something that we monitor very closely. Part of the strategic plan is identifying our vision and our mission, and this is something that we try to share and communicate to the staff on a regular basis. The vision of the Airport Authority is to strengthen Central Pennsylvania's economic growth and prosperity, and our mission is that we are Central Pennsylvania's transportation link to the global economy, and that's how we view it. We're not just flying to Chicago or Atlanta or Detroit. We're actually providing access to the global economy through into Europe, into Asia, globally. Our vision and mission is supported by a culture of course, safety and security is always number one for any transportation facility. Quality and service, entrepreneurship and innovation, integrity and transparency, financial responsibility, community service, and self-sufficiency. Again, we do not have any taxing authority or any outside financial resources other than what we generate on the airport. We generate our revenues through ground leases, like I said, through parking activity. Parking activity is actually our #1 revenue source for the Airport Authority. We get about $7 million a year in parking revenue. Car rentals provide, we get a concessionaire percentage. They provide a considerable amount of revenue. Of course, the airlines pay they pay landing fees, and they pay for space in the terminal building, and they pay gate use fees, and they pay common use fees for the baggage handling system and for a bag claim and so forth. So self-sufficiency is certainly something that me and my staff are always recognize as being of very high priority and importance. The successful implementation of Sarah's strategic plan is dependent on beginning with our employees. All our employees recognize the fact that we're a team. If the employees are happy, if the staff is happy, that translates into excellent customer service and service to our passengers. So it starts with the employees and our tenants, recognizing the fact that they are the first link with the users of Harrisburg International Airport. Again, customer service, air service development, both passenger and cargo. Cargo is another component of air service development that we work with regularly. Our various properties, which I showed you, and financial planning, just making sure that each and every year we're putting together a financial plan that leaves us with, we don't need to make a profit, but we need to pay all the bills. So at the end of the year, if we end up with a balance of zero, we're okay with that as long as all our bills are paid and all our financial obligations are met. All right, just wanted to talk a little bit about the region, air service development, and some of the things that we recognize and that we try to share with our airline partners when we do get a chance to visit. HIA serves the capital region of the nation's 6th largest state. A lot of, again, when we go to Atlanta and we go to Chicago or we go to Dallas, the people we're talking to, the route planning people or the scheduling people, may not be aware of some of these statistics, and so it's our job to make sure that they are, so that they understand that this is a region that can support additional airline services. Of course, they're looking to make a profit. So we have nearly 1.9 million people live within a 1-hour drive of Harrisburg International, and that's that dark circle area, the darker where the arrow is pointed. And coincidentally, we're the same 1-hour drive population as airports like Columbus. You can see HIA, Columbus is a little more than 2 million in their 1-hour drive population. HIA is almost is close to 1.9 million. Raleigh-Durham, North Carolina, 1.7. They have considerable more air service than Harrisburg International does. As far as population base is concerned, it's very close. We're even a little bit larger than they are. Austin, Texas, Richmond, and Albany. Albany has 1.2 million people and considerably more air service than Harrisburg International. But again, the big problem we have is the fact we're so close to Philadelphia and we're so close to Baltimore. And both those airports, Baltimore with all the Southwest service, all the low fare service they have, and Philadelphia with all their international connections. Oops. Okay. Nonstop service profile for Harrisburg International. We have Allegiant, we have American. It was American U.S. Airways. Now it's just American. Air Canada flies 2 flights a day to Toronto. We have Delta, we have United, and we have Southern Airways Express, which is offering nonstop service to 13 destinations. Southern Airways Express actually hasn't started serving Harrisburg yet. Their first flight is Monday, October 31st, and they're flying 3 flights per day to Pittsburgh out of Harrisburg. First time we've had Pittsburgh service since 2008 when U.S. Airways kind of dehubbed that Pittsburgh station. So we'll have 3 times daily service to Pittsburgh. It's a small airplane. It's a Cessna Caravan. It only has 9 passenger seats, but it's an hour-and-a-half flight to Pittsburgh. They'll be back and forth morning, noon, and night, and 1 flight per day on Saturday and Sunday. So that's how that schedule is going to work. And again, that service begins Monday, and we hope that's going to be year-round. Allegiant serves St. Petersburg. They serve Orlando. They serve Punta Gorda, which is Fort Myers, and also during the summer months, beginning in April, they'll be serving Myrtle Beach out of Harrisburg. So they fly to vacation destinations. Then, of course, Air Canada, Delta, United, American are all domestic and international carriers, which serve a lot of our business customers. So in 2015, an average of almost 3,300 passengers use the airport each day. And like I said, that's 1.3 million annually. Top destinations are Chicago, Orlando, Atlanta, Charlotte, and the Tampa Bay area. All destinations that are served nonstop out of Harrisburg. And we also have, on average, 250 people each day flying to and from international destinations, which the airlines really love because the international travelers are usually the high spenders, the ones that are generating the most revenue for the airline. And our top destinations are Toronto, where we have nonstop service, Cancun, San Juan, London, and Shanghai. And we're actually starting to see quite a bit more traffic or visits from China and from that region. And we even held a kind of a seminar a couple weeks ago. It was called China Welcome, and we hosted this in a way to get the people who are in the groups who are in the travel industry and the hotel industry and people from Hershey to kind of recognize the fact that we are seeing more and more visitors and travelers and frequent independent travelers from China, and we want to put this region in a position where we recognize this opportunity and we want to take advantage of the opportunity, and hopefully that leads to charter flights or even more those travelers viewing this region as more of a vacation destination than they do today. Come to find out, they love to go to Niagara Falls and to the Finger Lakes and areas that you really wouldn't think would be a vacation destination, but they really that's the first place they want to see. So we're gonna continue to pursue that China opportunity and see if it leads to any further or additional air service opportunities for Harrisburg International. And as I said, we have quite a bit of cargo activity. You don't really, if you're at the airport, you don't see that often because it takes place at night. They start loading up probably around 8:30, 9 o'clock, and the aircraft, the Airbus aircraft and the Boeing aircraft depart around 10:30, 11 o'clock, going to Memphis, going to Louisville, going to Indianapolis, out of Harrisburg. Most of the freight comes into Harrisburg from Williamsport and Scranton, and then gets packed on the UPS and FedEx planes, and out they go. They return usually around 5:30 in the morning. They parked on the ramp, and they're there all day until the next night when activity picks up again. And we do about 100,000 tons of air cargo a year, which puts us at about 60, 65 in airport size, number 60 or 65 busiest cargo airports in the country. And that's a service that we'd like to see expand. We're kind of constrained because of property assets, but we do have some opportunity to expand the ramp area, which we hope is going to lead to at least a couple more cargo flights and maybe even some international cargo in the future. All right, just a little bit about airlines again and air service development. Back in 2008, there were at least 13 different airlines operating two basic business models for HIA to market the central Pennsylvania region to. There was Air Canada, American, Continental, Delta, Northwest, United, US Airways, and several low-cost carriers. AirTran, which served Harrisburg for a couple of years, Allegiant, Frontier, JetBlue, Southwest, and Spirit. Since 2008, there's been a series of airline mergers. United merged with Continental, Delta merged with Northwest, American and US Airways have merged. AirTran and Southwest have merged, which caused us to lose AirTran service. So our opportunities for air service development have really been restricted because of the mergers. So now we have the global network airlines, which are Air Canada, American, Delta, United, all serve Harrisburg. We have the hybrid carriers, which are formerly low-cost carriers, not low-cost anymore. Southwest is not a low-cost airline, although that's the perception. And then they're moving into international destinations. Southwest is starting to serve some markets in Mexico, and they will soon be serving some markets in Canada. So instead of just a domestic carrier serving point to point, they'll be expanding internationally. And the ultra low-cost airlines, Allegiant, Frontier, Spirit, those are the airlines. We have Allegiant serving Harrisburg. We had Frontier left. Those are the airlines that you buy a ticket, it's a cheap ticket, it may be $69 one-way fare to Orlando, but then they charge you for every little thing beyond that. If you want priority boarding, or you want to sit in an aisle seat, or you want to bring a bag, or you want to use the overhead. So they put all these fees onto the price of your fare, and it potentially is no longer a low fare. You're paying what you might be paying if you tack on all the fees, what you might be paying if you decided you were going to fly American Airlines or Delta. But we're glad to have them in the market. All right, I had a couple quotes regarding leadership. There's a million different, I know that's kind of the focus of this group, there's a million different definitions and statements regarding leadership. I have one old school, one kind of current version. The old school version is from Dwight D. Eisenhower, who was general during World War II and also the 34th U.S. president. Leadership consists of nothing but taking responsibility for everything that goes wrong and giving your subordinates credit for everything that goes well. And I know that's the perception of leadership has changed quite a bit since the World War II era. Another quote that I found, this was from Kevin Cruz. He's an author and contributor for Forbes. Leadership is the process of social influence which maximizes the efforts of others toward the achievement of a goal. So basically what that's saying is that leadership stems from influence, and the influence that you can create in your organization to reach your goals and objectives, not from authority, not from power, or not from just simply having a title. It's clearly something different than just the title that you may have. I kind of look at both of these definitions and say, well, I'm kind I'm probably a little bit of both. I certainly, when it comes to my responsibility with the airport authority, try to give as much credit as I can to the staff, and of course, if when something goes wrong, and it often does, then being the executive director, you're ultimately responsible, and I'm the one that takes the responsibility for those issues. And of course, recognizing that leadership is more than just having a specific title. It's the ability to influence and to encourage your staff to follow you toward the goals and objectives that you as the leader and the executive director have view for the organization. Just a couple of, I wanted to list these as these are just some things that I often recognize myself as kind of soft skills with regard to leadership. And I know over the years I've learned a lot and just how with regard to what I do. Number one is always speak loud and clear. Make sure that, because people are listening and they do observe what you as a leader are trying to convey. And when you do that, you have to speak loud and clear. You have to make sure that they clearly understand what you're saying, and give them the opportunity to ask questions if they choose. A big part of making decisions and being a leader is listening. And being able to listen to your subordinates, to take advice, to gather all the facts before making an informed decision. So I know some people just say, well, this is the way I'm going to do it. This is the way we're going to do it, and that's it. I've learned over the years that it's much more a benefit to listen to the people who you've hired to do the work. Don't try to please everyone. That's something that I know a lot of people get stuck with. Well, I don't want to say something, or I don't want to make a decision that's going to make this person unhappy or this group unhappy. You can't always please everyone, and I've learned over the years that you make a decision, you try to make the right decision, but you're not always going to make everyone happy, and you just have to recognize that. Recognize the fact that you will not always be right. There's many decisions that I make, that we make on a regular basis, on a daily basis. Most of the time they're right, but sometimes it's not right, and when it's not right, you have to take responsibility. As I said with the Eisenhower quote, when things go wrong, it's ultimately the responsibility of the executive director in our case. And that's how I view my position. Show up ready to lead. When you get, I've often found that you're driving to work, you're listening to the radio, and you're not thinking about what's on the schedule today or what may be happening at the office. But I've often found that as soon as I get to work, sometimes there's people there waiting in the parking lot to inform me of something that's going on, or to ask a question. So I know for myself, when I'm at as soon as I turn that corner and I'm on airport property, I fully expect that I'm going to have to, that I'm the executive director, and I'm the one that's going to be responsible. And at that point, I need to be ready to lead. Communication is always the one issue that I think most organizations struggle with, and clearly we're always working on different methods to communicate our message to staff and to tenants and to passengers, and so that evolves over time and over years. But really, to be an effective leader, you have to develop that ability to communicate. You have to have self-awareness and be confident. Of course, you must be honest, be prepared, and be consistent. And by that I mean when particularly with human resource issues or a lot of different issues, you can't you can't let someone or allow someone to do one thing and not allow other people to do the same thing, or whether it's dress code, or there are hundreds of different examples, but as people do listen, it's always very important to be consistent with your decision making and with your daily work activity. All right, now I just wanted to talk a little bit about careers in aviation. I asked if anybody was interested in a career in aviation. There wasn't a lot of hands out there. I'm sorry to hear that. I know the aviation industry is really struggling with regard to developing new people coming through the system, particularly with regard to pilots and flight crews. You'll be hearing, you might be hearing at some point in the next couple of years that airlines are leaving some communities just because they don't have enough pilots to fly the airplanes that they have available. We're hoping that's not going to happen in Harrisburg, but it is happening around the country. So, but being a pilot is not the only career in aviation, or is not the only thing where people work with regard to careers in aviation. Of course, there are airline, cargo, and corporate pilots. We have plenty of that activity at Harrisburg International. If you're someone like me, airport administration or operations, I always found that very interesting, which is why I'm doing what I'm doing today. Engineering is a big career in aviation. We're supported by many consultants, engineering consultants, planning consultants, environmental consultants that work with and for the airport authority at our 4 facilities. Maintenance, repair, and overhaul. Aircraft mechanics. Aircraft have to go through regular cycles of maintenance, whether it's 100 hours or something less than that. A very important piece of the aviation system, and one that has to be maintained. There's corporate aviation, fixed-base operators. We at Harrisburg have Select Transport, we have Rite Aid, we have Hershey, we have Piedmont, that are all corporate entities that operate and have hangars and aircraft at Harrisburg International. So that's another career path that individuals can follow. There's a regulatory side, which is FAA, Federal Aviation Administration, Transportation Security Administration, Customs and Border Protection, always a big part of our regulatory environment. Air traffic control, of course. We have a 24-hour air traffic control tower, Harrisburg International, which and a part-time control tower at Capital City Airport as well. So there's lots of careers in air traffic control, and I know that they are hiring right now as people like me are getting older and leaving the system. Aviation legal or government relations. We deal with a lot of legal issues, a lot of attorneys and counsel that represent the airline industry, and just also represent general counsel issues, and government relations. There's a big lobbying opportunity with aviation as it relates to basically everything with FAA and TSA and the pilot shortage, passenger facility charges. There's lots of opportunity in that area as well. Aircraft management, which is well, I can't think of it right now, but the NetJets model is something that has been very successful as a career in aviation, sales and leasing, research and development, and of course there's lots of opportunities with the U.S. military as well relating to aviation. So the goal there is to hopefully generate some interest in a career in aviation. I know people here are just thinking about what you want to do for a career, and I just wanted to recognize the fact that there are lots of opportunities in the field of aviation as well. And that's it. Hopefully you'll have some questions that I can answer. And I also wanted to invite, if anybody is ever interested in taking a tour of Harrisburg International Airport and control tower or cargo operations, what we do administratively. I'm certainly available anytime that anybody would like to come up and tour the facility. We'd love to have you there, and we'll show you everything we do. So that's it for me. Thank you very much.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Matthews?
Yes.
So when I grew up, I watched my dad make his own and fly his own airplanes. So that was always really interesting to me. And I was wondering if you did anything like that, like building your own airplanes, and what sparked your interest in aviation?
I have not built my own airplane. I'd be afraid to do so, I think, because I'm afraid it would fall apart. But you know, really, my interest in aviation goes back to when I was very small, and at that point in time, there was the Apollo missions and the space missions, and it was all so very exciting, and all these astronauts were flying these little fighter jets around, going from place to place, and I was just fascinated by that whole thing. And from the very first time, the very first airplane I saw, which was probably when I was with my mother and she was going on a flight out of T.F. Green Airport in Providence, I've just been in love with aviation. So I can't explain it other than that. But a big part of it was the Apollo missions and the NASA, all the activity that was occurring in the late 60s and 70s with regard to space exploration. I just loved it. Yes.
You mentioned like your proximity to BWI and Philly. How do you retain your customers over them? What's your like competitive advantage strategy to retain over those airports?
Well, our competitive advantage really is convenience, because we're right here, we're local, and customer service, and as I mentioned. So we have, the market, our market area, we keep probably about 35% of that market flies out of Harrisburg. The rest are driving to Baltimore, and they're driving over to Philadelphia for lots of reasons. Baltimore has nonstop service to many destinations on Southwest Airlines, 200 departures a day, I think, just on Southwest. And Philadelphia has, they have all the carriers, including Southwest, but also they have many flights that are international, provide international access. So that's a big draw for them as well. But for us in this market, we recognize it's not always going to be cheaper to fly out of Harrisburg, but our passengers do love the convenience. They love the fact that they don't have to drive to Philly, and they don't have to drive down to Baltimore. And when they get back from wherever they travel to, they're home. You know, it's not another 2-hour drive on the highway to get back to their home. So that's the kind of thing that we try to promote. Our 3-letter identifier is MDT for Middletown, which is where the airport is located. And so we use that in our marketing campaign to stand for money, distance, and time. So even though the fare might be a little bit more out of Harrisburg, you're going to save money because you're not driving to Philadelphia, or you're not driving to Baltimore. The distance issue is, as I said, when you get home, you're home, and time is very important to a lot of our travelers as well. Yes?
Hi, my name is Alyssa. I'm an accounting major here, and I was wondering, you were talking about leadership and like being like open to taking responsibility. So what is one thing you'd like to see like the 4 airports that you operate like improve upon within like the next few years?
For us, it's always airline services and opening up opportunities for new markets and new carriers to serve our core passengers. And of course, economic development and supporting the economic development and strengthening the economic position of this region. But that's why we spend so much time chasing airlines and going to speed date airline meetings where you got all the airlines in one room and you get 20 minutes to talk to this one and 20 minutes to talk to that one. We do that every year. But we see as our biggest opportunity, because of the size of the region, we need to get more services, and I think that is going to drive a continued economic development and provide our customers and our passengers with additional opportunities for air service. So that's always our highest focus. Other than safety, security, maintaining the facilities, that always comes number one. Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Bobby Downey. I'm a marketing major, and I was just curious. You mentioned MTD as being part of like the way that you would do marketing, where it's
Right.
money, business, and time.
Yep.
What else do you do in terms of marketing to sell the airport as?
Well, we do. I have a marketing department. I have 4 people that work in that department. So we do, other than our outreach to various carriers and other business entities, we have a whole social media presence. And I'm not the one to speak to social media, but we have someone that we've hired that does specifically that. And they keep the presence on the web page. They keep that all up to date. We do, whenever we have new services to sell, like the Pittsburgh service, we'll place advertisements on the radio. We'll place advertisements on TV if that's what the airline wants to do. We usually dedicate for any new service about $50,000 for marketing. So we'll make that part of our incentive package. We waive fees for the first year so that they're not spending a lot of money to serve this market, but we'll also provide them $50,000, $60,000, $80,000 in marketing assistance so that we can get the word out that new service is available. So it's a lot of traditional stuff and a lot of the using the new today's technology to make sure that we're that people who are using that technology are able to see what we're doing. And that includes our Facebook presence and our, we see that as a customer service issue. We do get a lot of comments via Facebook and I don't know what the other ones are, but I know Facebook's the primary one. And we reply via those, that type of media as well. Yes.
You said that Harrisburg International doesn't run on tax revenue.
Right.
Are there airports that do use taxes
Hmm?
to run their operations?
Yeah, absolutely. I mentioned that I worked for the city of Lebanon, New Hampshire. The airport was part of the city. It was a department of the city. And in that particular case, we were part of the general fund. So even though we generated about 80% of the revenue we needed, the rest had to be subsidized by the taxpayers of the city of Lebanon. And that was always a problem with every board meeting or every city council meeting, every budget meeting when the airport was there asking for $200,000 or $300,000, whatever it was, in additional financial support just so that we could pay our employees and pay for the services and facilities that we needed to provide. And there are a lot of other airports that throughout the country that do have, other airport authorities as well, that do have taxing authority and can supplement their revenue through taxes on the local population. So that does happen. That's something that we do not have the ability, nor do we ever want to reach a position where we have to rely on outside sources. And we do get assistance, not assistance, we do get grants from the FAA. A lot of our capital projects are all paid for with FAA grants. We're rebuilding a runway. It's a $20 million project. We don't have $20 million. But the way we get the way we get those funds is is basically user fees. So everybody who flies pays a ticket tax. And when you purchase aviation fuel, there's a tax associated with that. When you ship products or packages, there's a tax that's attached to that shipment. And those taxes are collected and they go into what is called the Aviation Trust Fund. And part of the Aviation Trust Fund, a piece of it, is called the Airport Improvement Program. And from that Airport Improvement Program is where we get our grant money to pay for the runways and the taxiways and the navigation systems that we upgrade. So it's money that's collected by the users of the airport or the users of aviation, and that goes into a trust fund. And then from that trust fund, the airports are provided funding, grant funding, for various infrastructure projects. So if you don't fly or you don't use any aviation services, you don't pay into that trust fund at all. So it's only made up of money that comes from users of the aviation system. So, yes. All right, well, hey, thank you. And again, if anybody's interested in, at some point, in taking a tour of the facility, we're happy to do it. And thank you.